All right, folks, oats and egg yolks. I am live. Let me pull up Insta. We're going to jump on in. There we go. There we go. All right. Well, we're going to have a doozy today, but when don't we have a doozy? Because around here is just doozy central up in this mug. So anyway, so when you come on, if you're watching me live, come on in the chat. Let me know you're here so I can give you a shout out. And definitely keep your comments coming because, I'll put your comments on at the end because I always love your comments. I always love to hear what you have to say about what we're talking about. So if this is your first time seeing me, what I do is I come on every week, Friday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, although I'm thinking about changing that to see if I can get some more viewers. I come on every week and talk about the items in comic book world that caught my attention for the week. So I definitely have some stuff I want to talk about this week because it's really funny, man, because sometimes it's like feast or famine. Sometimes you have weeks where like nothing is happening. It feels like nothing is happening. And then you have weeks where oh yeah, it's my echo. So you have weeks where so much has happened until you can't really cover it all, So, so I always pick out the particular things that caught my attention for the week, the particular things that hit me that I really wanted to talk about, and I really wanted to talk to my peeps about, and really wanted to talk to, because social media is basically the Comic-Con that never ends. That's one of the upsides, one of the few, but one of the upsides of social media is that we get to have a Comic-Con that basically never ends. And that's the coolest part because we get to talk about our story worlds, we get to talk about our favorite characters, we get to talk about in fantasy and sci-fi and superhero world, all the stuff we love. And we get to talk about it with other people that love it like we do. For the most part, because then there's the trolls, and then there's all the people who open up these sock accounts and just join this month, and they open up an account just to come on your timeline and troll you and whatever. So anyway, let me get started because I start on time. So there's my magic appearing clock. There we go. There's my magic appearing clock. What's up, Barack? Yeah, so I want to start off before we get into today's stuff with rest in peace, Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris said, we just found this out. When I say just found this out, I mean like in the last hour. We just found out that Chuck Norris had passed. So rest in peace to another legend. You can't say that man didn't make his mark in life. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You can't say that his contributions to entertainment went unnoticed. No, they didn't. Chuck Norris made his mark in life and leaves behind a legacy of stuff that has impacted people for decades and probably still will. So I would probably call Chuck Norris one of the last great American heroes. If I had to describe him and describe his passing, I would call him probably one of the last great American heroes, Chuck Norris. So rest in peace, Chuck Norris. Is my condolences to his family, his surviving family members, because it can't be easy. It doesn't matter how old a loved one is when they pass, even if you knew it was coming. It's not easy. So my heart goes out to his family. So that's that. Now, the first thing I want to talk about today on my live stream is lanterns versus green lanterns. In other words, Lindelof's so-called apology, his so-called retraction of his statements. And so I kept a lot of tweets. So let me pull those up. And then I'm probably going to pull up his original Instagram post. But I like to keep the tweets and stuff like that because sometimes people end up taking their post down later and then, and then try to act like they didn't say what they said. So anyway, I kept some tweets this week. They didn't show the ring and have it say lanterns and you have no idea it was comic book related. Check and check. That's the problem. You made a Green Lantern showing his brown and gray. Check, check. The Cosmic Heroes with a little slogan in brightest day, and it's some cheap Yellowstone True Detective knockoff. Check and check. So Rock Talks, this right here is the problem. Creative like Damon Lindelof creative in air quotes, goes on a podcast, laughs, casually says they dropped green from lanterns because the word green is stupid. The whole Green Lantern concept applied to be a dumb joke, not worth keeping in the title. Then the backlash hits, and Morrison calls it out, and fans rightfully lose their minds. And then he comes with this, oh, I was sloppy and careless, and it was just a dumb joke, and blah, 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 blah. That's only because you got pushback, not because you didn't mean what you said. So I said this week that comic book characters are worth billions of dollars at the box office, and they are. The Dark Knight was the first movie to gross over $1 billion. And since then, we've had multiple movies, comic book movies, gross over $1 billion, and then in Infinity War and Endgame hit the over $2 billion mark. That's why I keep telling you, you have to have normies if you want numbers like that. So I'm not laughing at anything. I know people laugh at geeks and nerds and creatives and whatever they want to call us, but I don't care. How do you know you're not the next Stan Lee? How do you know that? How do you know you're not the next Steve Ditko? How do you know that? How do you know that you are not the next Jack Kirby? How do you know that? How do you know that? So you could create something that before it's all over grosses multi-billion dollars worth of revenue. That's not funny and that's not silly. That's another reason I don't care what people say or think about comic book stuff or how old you are or whatever. Yeah, you just running your mouth. You give anything for that Superman money. You give anything for that Spider-Man money. I bet it's not silly then, is it? Right. So here's the actual Instagram post. Apparently, Lindelof has posted a retraction of sorts or an apology on his Instagram. Also, I don't believe him, so we'll see if the show turns out any differently than anticipated. I don't believe a word he said. So let's pull that up. Let me see if that post is still there, because I wouldn't be surprised if he, I don't know, it's still there, because I wouldn't be surprised if he had taken it down by now. But so let's look at that. I have upset Grant Morrison, which means I've now pissed off most of the brilliant British-Scottish comics writers that I grew up idolizing. To quote the bard, Otis Redding, this is nobody's fault but mine. I don't believe a word of that. You know why I don't believe a word of that? Because I don't make a point to antagonize people that I actually admire. Why would I want to do that? You can't be listening to what people say. You got to watch what they do. If it's someone that I actually admire, why would I want to, on purpose, antagonize or belittle? Why? Even in jest. I made a dumb joke on a comedy podcast. I'm not going to Bob Believe about context. The joke was dumb. The fandom is not. I owe them an explanation and a genuine reflection of my actual feelings. Everything He said in that the opposite is true, except the dumb joke part. Everything in that paragraph, the opposite is true. I made a dumb joke. That's the only part that's true. On a comedy podcast, nobody was laughing. If it was understood, it was a comedic context. It wouldn't have ignited a firestorm because people expect outrageous statements in comedy situations. People expect outrageous situations if the atmosphere and the climate is one based on comedy. I'm not going to bob and weave about the context. Really? As if you had a choice. You're making it sound like that's some type of noble effort on your part. You know, I'm not going to bob and weave and try to use content and try to spin it. Really? Everybody heard you say what you said. You're not bobbing and weaving about context because it's on tape. The joke was dumb. The fandom is not. Right. Joke was dumb, right? It's just you're saying that it's dumb because you got called out on it. It was dumb of you to say something like that. If you felt that way, you should have kept it to yourself. For some reason that I haven't figured out yet, people don't understand that people are people. And so there's this thing that we have among us humans that make us think that because we might be separated by educational levels or socioeconomic class or fame or infamy or notoriety or even power and position, there's this thing that we have among us humans where we think that all of that invalidates our humanity. And it doesn't, because we all have feet of clay. And so I'm saying all that to say that people know when you're being insincere. And when you said the joke was dumb, you just meant, I'm sorry, I got caught and called out. Okay? The fandom is not, that's the biggest tell for me. When he says the fandom is not, you mean the opposite of that. You thought we were, which is why you're surprised at the backlash from Grant Morrison and everybody else. You thought we were stupid. Which tells me you have no idea who you're writing for, because sci-fi, fantasy, comic book, superhero fans are the most detailed fans on the planet. I made up in my mind a long time ago. I had to stop getting tired of saying the same things over and over and over again. You have to know your audience. That's like marketing 101. Why would anybody want to buy your product if it's not targeted towards them? And when it comes to the sci-fi and fantasy community, Nathan Fillion is using this principle to his advantage for the revival of Firefly, because he doesn't have a distributor. The new proposed animated series is just that. It's a proposal. It doesn't have a home yet. No one's picked it up. So Nathan Fillion is using the strength of fan support and our love for the series to build momentum to get a studio to pick it up. Nathan Fillion is doing the opposite of what Lindelof did. He's using fan support to his benefit. Is using the fact that we are detailed, nitpicky, pedantic people. I think it was Miss Gina Torres that said, ain't no fans like sci-fi fans. Miss Gina is right. There's no fan of any genre like sci-fi fans because we nitpick the details. Yes, we do. So when he said the joke was dumb, the fandom is not, no. What you mean is the opposite of what you said. You thought you were being clever and you thought we were stupid, which lets me know that you don't know nothing about the people you're writing for. Because the people you're writing for are extremely passionate people that love the very, very small details about their story world. Okay? I owe them an explanation and a genuine reflection of my actual feelings. We already know what your actual feelings are. We already know. For some reason I haven't figured out yet, people don't seem to understand that many times people hide what they mean with a lame attempt at humor. So they say what they really mean, then they say, ha ha, just kidding. And I was just kidding, I was just joking. And no, you weren't. You meant every black word you said. Everybody does that sometimes. So why he thinks we're so stupid not to understand that you meant what you said. You saw it garnered as much backlash as it did. Everybody tries to crack on something and then hide it behind humor. I was just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, really? Everybody does that. So why you think people can't pick up on that is beyond me. Very first time I appeared on a Comic-Con panel was for The Lost Pilot back in 2004. One of my favorite t-shirts I had long growing out of my favorite underoos, those being the uniform of Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, etc. in 28-4. Oh, okay. You know what all that means? All that is a Kevin Feige attempt at, no, I'm a fan, really. Zack Snyder, no, I'm a fan, really. James Schmunn, no, I'm a fan, really. That's what that is. No, you're not a fan. You hate them, and you hate us for loving them. That's why when you get your hands on them, you destroy them. One more time, in case it seems like I stuttered. You are not an actual fan of these properties. You hate them. You hate everything they stand for. I was just talking this morning about Batman Begins, about the Nolan trilogy. By the time we get to The Dark Knight Rises, that is so not Batman. And Batman wouldn't be sulking for 70 years because some stupid Rachel Dawes died. He became Batman because his parents got killed right in front of him. Did we forget that part? You do not love these characters and you don't love us. You hate them. You hate what they are. So when they get put in your hands, like Kurtzman Trek, you do everything you can to dismantle them just out of spite. And you think that we don't get that. Okay. For a quiet, uncoordinated kid, there was nothing cooler than a hero whose superpower was his imagination. And I don't believe a black word you're saying. You know why? Because I look at your show and I look at your trailer and I look at what you have is old, grizzly, beaten down, worn down Hal Jordan, not Hal in his prime, which is what we always wanted. We only got Ryan Reynolds and then nothing. Instead, this is retirement Hal, who looks like he's perpetually hungover and hasn't showered in a month. And there's very little lantern action or cosmic level anything in the trailer. So people keep saying, you haven't seen the show, you haven't seen the show. But you would put some of that in the trailer if you understood that's what people want to see. You do not understand what people want to see because you hate the property and you hate us too. Because you would have better sense. And in the trailer, Jon Stewart is saying, we took the oath to protect people, and you got to admit, I'm better at that than you. So right there in the first trailer, you have Jon Stewart lecturing Hal Jordan. Jon Stewart lecturing Hal Jordan. Now I know, when you read his first appearance and all that, but I mean, in today's climate, today's day and age, the last thing we want is another lecture, and you don't get that. But once again, it's going to be infused with your wokeness that the black man has to lecture the white man, and the old white man is bumbly and stumbly, just like Star Trek Picard. I don't believe a word he says. And green is not stupid. No, it's not. It's my lifelong favorite color, sure. And I have a questionnaire that I filled out in third grade to prove that green is awesome. Why does everybody have to cuss so much these days? Cussing has moved to the mainstream. I understand mainstream. We said why people used to use profanity so much these days. So here's Nathan or whatever. Yeah, of course, Nathan's going to say that because he's playing Guy Gardner. That's not what he's saying with Firefly, is he? He's not calling us stupid. With Firefly, he's not calling the brown coat worship. He's not calling that stupid, is he? More importantly, it would be a betrayal to everyone I work for and alongside to say anything other than I'm absolutely honored to be a part of the team that manifested the incredible construct that is Lanterns. No, you're not proud of none of that. I was sloppy and careless with my words. That part is true. Ironic considering I care so much about Hal, John, and the entire core. No, you don't. And your show's going to reflect that. I can and will do better. So do better to be worthy of the oath. Until then, I'll let the show speak for itself, and I can't wait for you all to hear what it has to say. Whatever. You're not going to like what we have to say if the show plays out the way I think it will. Now, if I'm wrong, I will be quick to admit that I'm wrong, and I will be happy that I'm wrong. Because Green Lantern, the animated series, was the bomb. If they did that in live action, they'd have a hit, but they don't want to do that, do they? Which proves my point. So of course Nathan chimes in, but like I said, Nathan Fillion can't afford to turn fans against him right now. Okay? He can't afford, he's playing Guy Gardner. He wants to keep working, and Guy Gardner is going to show up on this show. So of course he's going to come out and support. He can't afford not to. Not right now, he can't. So, I mean, I just do not believe a word that he says. Let's look at Grant Morrison's actual statement. Grant Morrison bashes HBO's upcoming Lantern show, and specifically the title. TV writer producer Damon Lindelof's comments notwithstanding, the green in Green Lanterns, green is not stupid. Why does a writer attach himself to this kind of narrative if he thinks it's fundamentally stupid? Exactly. Lord of the Rings, Willow, Wheel of Time, Star Trek, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, MCU. How many more do I have to name? And they just replaced Optimus Prime with a female Autobot named Elita Prime. You don't hand CSI scripts to patronizing writers who condemn forensics experts and their haircuts as stupid. So why hire people who are ashamed and in denial about the comic book material they've been assigned to develop? I mean, I couldn't say that any better. How can that be said any better? Why don't they turn down jobs they're not suited for? It's not like he needs the money, and Lindelof has proven that he can come up with his own ideas. So Grant Morrison is saying right there, point blank, in no uncertain terms, why take the job if you don't like the material, especially if you don't need the money? Why sign up if you think it's stupid? Why sign up if you're not going to give the fans what they want? And what we want is Hal Jordan in his prime. You know, the greatest Green Lantern. I was having this conversation this morning on Twitter about Batman Begins and the Nolan trilogy. And we got people running around here talking about Batman got his name because of his fear of bats. Just please shut all the way up. Everything you got that can shut, put it in an up position. Batman is not afraid of bats. That is not why he became Batman. You might want to read the comic. The comics explain over and over again why he chose the bat motif. It wasn't because he was afraid of bats. Who put that out there? Christian Bale in Batman Begins. So now people that don't read comics, now normies, think the stuff they saw in the movies is actually true. That's why fidelity to the source material is so important. So now I'm seeing all these silly tweets where people running around talking about Batman's afraid of bats. Just go tweet about something else. Okay. What is this jockish dismissal of superhero conventions intended to prove anyway? Does Lindelof imagine it makes him seem less nerdy? Now, it's a bit too late for that. So what's it all about? Now, I've been saying for weeks now, I've been trying to tell you this whole thing that we've experienced for the last 10 years is just revenge of the nerds. It's just theater kids and people in high school that got dubbed the weird kids, that got put down by the plastics, that didn't get to sit at the cool kids' table, got so butthurt by that, they've been angry their entire adult lives. So when they get a chance to bash those people right here, Morrison is talking about jocks and nerds. One of the things I had to accept in my adult life is that in America, high school never ends. When I became an adult, when I hit a certain age, I said, there's some things I'm not going to have to deal with anymore because I'm this age. Then I found out that I was wrong. So I had to accept that high school actually never ends. That and the fact that there's been a concerted effort to create the infantilization of American adults over the last, really over about 40 years, definitely this century, but really at least the last 4 decades, we have to go back. But there's been a focused effort to create infantilization in American adults because it's easier to make you buy stuff and just go do what you're told when you think like a kid. But in any case, I had to accept that in America, high school never ends. People side up with their tribe and then yell at the other table in the cafeteria for the rest of their lives. I'm going to say that one more time. People sit at the table with their tribe and then yell in the cafeteria at the other tables in the other tribes for the rest of their lives, in America anyway. Now, people didn't always do that. People from like the World War II generation didn't do that. My grandparents didn't do that. But it's been an effort. And part of it is that we're too comfortable. That's what too much comfort does for you. But anyway, the only people who give a blank about the Lanterns TV series are Green Lantern fans. Oh my goodness. I wish I could like this tweet 10 times. Again, the only people who give a care about the Lanterns TV series are Green Lantern fans. See how Lindelof doesn't get that? The core audience is going to be people that already care about Green Lantern, which is us. If you want big numbers, you have to bring the normies in for sure. But the only people that really care are the comic fans. Why alienate them at the start? That feels more like stupid. And then Fandom Pulse, I think this is, says, is he right? Yes, he's right. He's 1,000% right. Yeah, he's right. That's right. So, I mean, I said he's absolutely right on every level with every word. There's no other genre that actively and repeatedly hires a team that hates its subject matter like superhero-based media. Except for animation, somehow they get it right more often than not. And speaking of that, that leads me right on into my next topic. And you know what my next topic is? You already know. I bet you already know. My next topic is someone that just did the same thing, and that is Dan Slott. Now, I am blocked by Dan Slott, and I got blocked by him a long time ago, but I never knew why because I never really interacted with him. So either he did like a group blocking thing, or sometimes people block people that are friends of people they don't like. Or maybe I'll just, spout it off and say something because I'm always giving my comic book takes on Twitter because that's what I do. And so maybe I said something he didn't like, or whatever. But I'm blocked by him, and I've been blocked for a long time. But he was actually in a video this week begging fans to buy his new Spider-Man book. And we're going to watch that video. I don't think I can get any type of strike for that video. I'm going to watch that video on Facebook. Hold on, let me pull that up. Okay. Here we go. Y'all should be able to see that. So here we go. Let's watch this.
If you are a reader and you loved reading, you had fun reading my run of Spider-Man and you want more of it, please put this on your pull list now. The final order for our first issue is March 30th. Please put this on your pull list now. If you are a retailer, we know you're going to order issue number 1 well. No doubt. Everyone always does that with number 1. This is me talking to you. I need you on issue 2. When it's time to put in your orders for issue 2, I need you to order this like you're ordering your Dan Slott Spider-Man comic for issue 2, instead of like, hey, there's like 12 other books with blind bags and I'm going to put all my money into that. We're at a point now where Marvel is when books come out, Marvel books come out, no matter what they are, they're lined up for 5 issues at a time. And what that means is if you don't support the issue 2s and 3s, these books will go away by issue 5.
Okay, now, can we just talk about everything that's wrong with that? Everything that's wrong with that. Do you have to try to, it seems like Marvel has come full circle. So if you remember back in the 90s, they were doing really, really bad. And they were talking bankruptcy. So what did Marvel do? Marvel auctioned off its highest properties at the time, auctioned off the film rights in exchange for the money. So they auctioned off Spider-Man, auctioned off Fantastic Four, and auctioned off X-Men. Remember that back in the 90s? So it looks like even after the MCU, which I know that's different from the comics division, but I'm saying it looks like even after all that, it looks like Marvel has come full circle and sound like they broke again. Because why does a creator working for Marvel have to make this kind of video to both fans and retailers that we need you to buy this stuff? Why? Because if the stuff was selling, if the stuff was good as whatever, Spider-Man is one of the most popular characters in the world. So just the existence of this video is strange to me, that you got to come on and make a statement like that to try to get people to buy a Spider-Man comic, and also to say that these comics are only slotted to live for 5 issues. See, if that's something that's true, you ain't supposed to say that out loud. If that's something that's true, you ain't supposed to say that out loud. Do I really have to say that? If that's true, that's not, that peek behind the scenes is not what we ain't supposed to know that. We ain't supposed to know that you're so desperate for comic sales that you are only scheduling your books like 5 at a time to see if they go. I mean, that's what I mean when I say it feels like Marvel didn't come back full circle and feel like they broke again. And I don't, how can I say this? Well, what I'm trying to say is, what I'm thinking about, what I'm trying to say is, there's a severe lack of coordination between the movie division and the comics division on the good side, on the ways that the comic division and the movie division could support each other. They don't do that. But on the ways to anger fans, they do that. So one of the things that happened with Marvel now, all new Marvel, and then Marvel now, talking back 2015 or so, when the MCU was popping, one of the things they did in the comics was replace all the main characters with the DEI versions. No more Tony Stark, just Rhodey. No more Thor, just Jane Foster Thor. No more Steve Rogers Captain America, but Sam Wilson and Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, and just on and on and on and on and on. Because at the time, when normies were so in love with the MCU that they were giving billions of dollars to those movies, Marvel thought that the thing to do would be to replace the classic characters with the DEI characters. I wish I knew how to explain that. And for those of you that say they had that going before the movies, you realize that doesn't make it better, right? And we ain't gonna never let go of Snowflake and Safe Space. Y'all remember Snowflake and Safe Space, don't you? Ha ha ha. So for those of you that don't know who Snowflake and Safe Space are, they were some of the first DEI characters that were supposed to get their own book in the New Warriors. And everything about them is gender bending. So the girl has on the blue and the boy has on the pink. That's on purpose. And so they were going to be a part of the New Warriors, and one of the dudes got his power from internet gas. I'm not making that up. And one of the girls was, I think she's a Native American or indigenous person, was overweight with a magic backpack. I'm not making that up. So fortunately for us, this comic never got published, but the fact that they were going to go in this direction is my proof of concept. That at the time where the MCU is at its peak and the time where the MCU is just making record numbers and all that, that's the time people want to come to comic shops and read about Tony Stark. But you said, no, later for that, it needs to be Rhodey. And on and on and on. I see that, Eric. I'm going to talk about that. And so, yeah, so that's what I mean when I say the coordination has always been so poor. And I think that's why Marvel is back down, because we know it's true with Star Wars. They keep trying to say that Star Wars is a juggernaut and once was. No, it's not. They're quietly replacing all of the sequel trilogy stuff with original trilogy stuff as fast as they can. Because don't nobody want Kylo Ren and Rey, and don't nobody want that. The biggest shot they had was Finn, and they blew that. So the point I'm trying to make is that this whole thing with Slott making this kind of video, to me, is just bizarre. It's just really bizarre, because the fact that you have to say it means that Marvel Comics must be in trouble, and then you reveal something that should have stayed behind the scenes, that the books are only slotted to live for 5 issues. That means you don't believe in them. That means you don't think they'll sell. So you're only willing to commit resources to 5 issues at a time. Are you kidding me? So that's why so much stuff with Marvel is launched and canceled, launched and canceled. And he said you're going to buy the number ones because everybody always does. You're not supposed to say stuff like that out loud if you work for Marvel. But anyway, this whole thing is just bizarre. So I want to read this article on Twitter, some of it. Pirates and Princesses, that's Geeky Sparkles from Clownfish. Shout out to them. Is Marvel Comics okay? Spider-Man writer Dan Slott begs fans about my new book or it dies. So we're not going to read this whole thing, but so she summed up what I just told you, what we just watched in the video. Okay. And don't nobody, people only want to see Peter and MJ and Mayday, or Peter and MJ happy. Okay. But the new series revives the brand new day era Slott helped define years ago, focusing on Peter Parker's life after major status quo shifts. Early solicits promise fresh storytelling with classic Spider-Man vibes, but the short test window means it needs strong early sales to prove itself. Yes, One More Day is the most despised Spider-Man storyline of all time. And we're talking about even with the Clone Saga, and we're talking about even with Sins Past, One More Day into Brand New Day is the most despised Spider-Man story of all time. So what do? They keep doubling down. You can't convince me that these people know what they're doing. You can't convince me that they love the characters, and you can't convince me that they love us. No, they don't. They hate everything they're dealing with. Monthly single issue sales remain soft for many books outside the biggest events. Even as digital and collected editions perform better. Do you know why? Number one, obviously, because digital is cheaper, but number two, because we don't want to have to buy 27 books to read a whole story. Just wait till it comes out at a trade paperback. And then also, you want to know how the story ends if it's worth your time, because nowadays you don't know. Before, we used to get great stories. Now we don't know. So we need to wait and see. Okay. Slott did Brand New Day, Superior Spider-Man. That is the last Spider-Man book I personally bought, was a Superior Spider-Man run. Now, it uses one of my most hated tropes, that the hero's powers don't get turned up to max until the villain gets them. But in this case, I love the improvements that Doc Ock came up with when he was posing as Peter Parker. The way he turned Spider-Man, everything up, I did like that. I did not like the cucking of Peter Parker, because once again, all they know how to write is cucks. So Peter hooking up with, Mary Jane Ock in Peter's body. But anyway, I did like the improvements. Okay. But I mean, Slott is kind of known to bash fans. He's kind of known to laugh at us. He's kind of known to belittle us. He's kind of known for that. So it's like you're going to ask for help from people that you obviously hate and belittle and have no respect for. So that's what lets me know that they're hurting. They must be hurting if he's got to resort to stuff like that. Must be hurting. Fans point to several contributing factors: rise from indie publishers, which I'm one, Image and DC, rising cover prices, digital and trades. That's right, because when you got a 15-book story arc, and then when they do that thing where you got to buy all these other books, like they do that with Batman all the time, like they did that with Death in the Family, Death of the Family, oh Lord, all these tie-ins. Don't nobody want to buy all that, especially if the story's not that good. So digital and trades are where it's at these days if you want to collect. Okay. Some fans praise Slott for being transparent and honest about the realities of comic sales. I guess, but that doesn't inspire confidence now, does it? That doesn't make us want to continue, especially with someone that, I mean, if I could just show you the tweets I read this week about how people were responding, but I mean, they're all laced with profanity. So, but I mean, if I could just show you how people were responding, because people were remembering all the stuff that Slott has said in the past about the people he's asking for money from now. And so that kind of is what it is. So, I mean, I don't know. So anyway, so there's that. So sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think about that. Because now the one thing I will say, the one thing that Slott helped create that I did like was Silk. I do like Silk. I know a lot of people don't like Silk. You need to read her backstory. Her and Peter have this kind of feral chemistry connection. Cindy Moon was bitten by the same spider that bit Peter. And so they kind of had a friends with benefits relationship. And they just have this kind of animal magnetism towards each other and nothing else. And it didn't work out or whatever. but I like Silk as a character, and I like her costume design, and so I like her. So he did help co-create her, so I give him that. But I mean, like I said, I just don't understand the deep lack of coordination between what's working and what's not, what fans want and what they don't, and about striking when the iron is hot, when you have the MCU at its peak and in its prime, when you have normies feeding the movies to the tunes of multiple billions, and then you don't have sense enough to understand that when they come to comic shops, they want to see the characters from the movie in the books. But you get rid of Thor and replace him with Jane Foster, and then really? And never give us Beta Ray Bill. Really? Like I said, these are not people that know what they're doing. These are not people that love these characters. These are not people that are fans themselves. They keep trying to pass themselves off as fans, but they're not. They have no idea what they're doing. And finally, what I'm going to talk about today, even though I can't play it, so what I'm going to do is just talk about the scenes in it, but I can't play it. I can't play the video with no audio. I can't play the audio because I'll get hit, and I'm tired of that. But anyway, so I am going to talk about the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer. And then we'll look at some other things, but I can't play it, unfortunately. I'm sad to say. And I really don't like that, because the way it's supposed to work is that we're supposed to have, when we're a commentary channel, when we're giving, news, feedback, opinions, and commentary, then that's supposed to fall under fair use. But apparently not. So in the Spider-Man trailer, the first thing we see is Peter sitting on the rooftop, and he's got his mask off. What is he watching? Of course, his costume looks cheap again because he's no longer Iron Spider Boy. That part is good. His costume looks homemade, like it should, but what is he watching? He's watching on his phone, he's watching video of this insipid MJ, which nobody likes Zendaya in this role. I mean, once again, Hollywood puts people in roles, but they don't have their finger on the pulse of how fans feel about them. Nobody likes his version of MJ. I know it's Michelle Jones. I know it's not Mary Jane Watson, but they called her MJ. Nobody likes her. And Ned, I can't stand Ned from the moment I first saw him on the screen. When I saw Anjali Rice as Betty Brant, I said, why didn't y'all make her Gwen? But no, they're not going to do that, so okay. So once again, here they are. Peter is supposed to have made everybody forget his old life. Here he is mooning and pining and whining about these old friends. And I told you, his cast is Miles Morales' cast, not Peter Parker's cast. Not in the slightest. So, I mean, I've never liked Ned. I've never liked MJ. I'm tired of him. So, of course, that's the first stuff in the trailer about how happy they are. Okay. Then we see Peter falling. He pulls his mask down, but then we see behind the mask, and it doesn't look like his mask is skin tight. Some people had some comments about that. And I'm like, I understand that behind the mask shot. Yes, it is skin tight. And technically, it probably wouldn't look that way. But I mean, just for artistic license, I understand that. I understand that whole thing. So that's not that big of a deal. Wait a second. I told you if I got the sniffles, then they'd wait till I get on camera. But anyway, so I understand that. So that wasn't that big of a deal to me. Okay. But bothered some people. So anyway, so this is Spider-Man Brand New Day. And Peter has those horrific external web shooters, and I hate them. He once again is mooning over missing Ned and MJ and washing his costume in the dryer. And he's remembering when he got the key to the city as Spider-Man, but nobody remembers that he's Peter Parker. And his words are, sometimes Spider-Man has to do the hard thing. That's true. Okay. But then we get a shot of Peter being run over by the Punisher. Okay. And by Johnny Bernthal as a Punisher. And I like him in that role. And so what I really think, and you see it, by the time we get through, what I really think is this feels more like a big issue of Marvel team up, but it also feels legitimately like a Spider-Man movie. And I was quite surprised. It legit feels like a Spider-Man movie more than anything else we've seen so far. So the first appearance of Holland in Civil War was best. And we got them 3 home movies, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. No Way Home was nostalgia bait. This movie finally feels like an actual Spider-Man movie, so I give it that. Okay, but of course they have to cuck Peter again. So who do we see? He's at a party, looking all sad, watching MJ make out with a new boyfriend, which is also Ezra Bridger. And they couldn't let Flash Thompson be a white guy with blonde hair either, like he is in the comics. They have to cuck Peter. They have to cuck Superman. They have to cuck Oliver. They have to cuck everybody. They have to cuck Scott Summers, everybody. I don't know if they've ever cucked Batman. I think Selina has, maybe a couple times, but I think Batman knows better than to think he could tie Selina down, except that one time where she fooled him into thinking that she was going to marry him. So I don't really know if they've cucked Batman, but everybody else, because they hate masculinity and want to destroy it. So, of course, we have a big shot of Peter being wide-eyed watching MJ, And then we get the big kahuna. And what's the big kahuna? The big kahuna is that Peter goes into a cocoon and comes out of the cocoon. And it looks like he now has organic web shooters. Now, that is straight out of the comics. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But that's the thing that caught everybody's attention. Like, wow, because he's mutating. And then we see Dr. Banner. Ruffalo is in the trailer. In the comics, Banner forgot Peter was Spider-Man, but Hulk didn't. Famous comic panel. So in the movie, if Banner hulks out, Hulk might remember. I don't know. But anyway, so Hulk is in this movie too, because he's the one that tells Peter that his mutation and his DNA changing is a catastrophic thing. It's a very, very bad thing. And so what it looks like is happening is that Peter's strength is increasing and his spider senses are being turned up to 11 and he can make the webs now. Okay. Straight out of the comics. I'm going to get to that in a minute. See a picture of Aunt May's grave because, of course, we ain't never seen Uncle Ben with Holland. And now Aunt May is dead too, which is really funny because her being alive was the catalyst for one more day to deal with Mephisto. It's really funny. Spidey breaks into a vault. Then he sees a woman that looks like she's projecting her mind. Looks like she's brain jumping, which is probably a nod to Jean Grey. And then we see a shot of Scorpion. We've been wanting to see that for a long time. That should be cool. This really feels like a comic book come to life more so than anything else. And I was amazed when I got through watching this trailer how much I liked it. So I still feel like it's a little crowded and there's still some things I don't like. But it really feels like a comic book come to life, which I think has the potential to be really awesome. And then we have that one shot of Spider-Man running to the bus and a woman that looks like Rogue is on the bus, except she's way too old to be Rogue if Jean Grey is that young. Rogue is supposed to be about that same age. So maybe she's cosplaying Rogue or something. And then they do a shot that's straight out of Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, of him carrying the criminal over the city. So there's a nod to that. And then they have the hand. And then we see Peter's eyes going dark because he might be developing the multiple eyes like a spider. So I mean, So what I will say about this trailer is that there was more in it than intrigued me that didn't. There was more in it that I liked than I did not like. And so it really feels like a real comic book come to life. So I think it has potential. Now, I want to talk about Peter's transformation. So in the comics, there's a storyline called The Other. Peter gets organic webs and other powers after coming out of a cocoon, none of which he kept because writers didn't actually read comics. And what if he chose not to embrace the spider and turned into a man spider creature? So what I'm trying to show you is that Peter has been through this in the comics. So this is not new. And another thing I want to talk about is that this concept is not new. And what I mean by that is, I want you to notice that every character that's based on a totem, every character like based on a bat, based on a spider, based on a totem of any kind, based on an animal or an insect or a totem, every character has an arc where they have to decide, am I a man or am I my totem? And am I a man or am I a spider? Wolverine, am I a man or am I a feral animal? You know, am I a man or am I the bat? We got the answers from that because there's such a character as Man Bat and Azrael Bats. So what happens when the bat takes over? And then Batman was on Venom for a while. But anyway, so every character that's based on a totem idea has an arc where they have to decide, am I a man or am I my totem? And so this thing about Man Spider is not new. Okay, it's not a new idea of Peter's powers. For whatever reason, somebody manipulating them, or as we're going to see in a minute, he himself manipulating them, or whatever, this is not new. And so, so what I do want to say about that is that there's something in the comics called the Six Arm Saga. And long story short, this was back in 1971. So Peter was trying to get rid of his powers, and he created a serum that he thought was going to take his powers away, but instead they mutated him further, and he grew 4 extra arms. I remember the first time I saw that panel, I was like, what the complete world? So that's what I mean when I say 6-armed Spider-Man is not new. And he was like that for a while too. So he had to change his costume and all that. And then we had to begin to wonder, is he always going to be this way? Is this the new Spider-Man? So it's just not a new concept. Peter morphing or metamorphosizing into a different version of himself is not new, where the spider looks like it's taken over. And the big news, well, I won't say the big news. The big news to me is the organic webs and the fact that the spider might be taken over. I think that's the major news from the trailer. But also, so let me pull this up so we can look at this. Make sure you guys can see that. Also, there's the shots of Sadie Sink, which we believe are going to be Jean Grey. Now, there's a whole theory. I don't know if it's leaked scripts or I don't know if it's fan theory. I don't know where it comes from. But I've been reading whole threads this week about how Jean Grey is not just a part of this movie. She's the catalyst. So like I told you, I know this movie is a soft launch of the new X-Men. There was just no questioning that at this point. And I know this movie is going to look more like a Marvel team-up episode, which I'm kind of down with because it feels like a Spider-Man comic, which I'm really kind of down with that. So MJ and Ned notwithstanding, there's more in it I like than I don't. And like I said, with these glimpses of Sadie Sink. I don't think she's Mary Jane. I think she's Jean. Because one thing Marvel does know at this point is that the only shot that they have, they're not going to bring the MCU back. I already told you it's not coming back. MCU ain't coming back. I'm sorry. MCU is not coming back. It's not going to be that billion-dollar juggernaut that it was. No. But the only shot they have to have movies that more people would be interested in is the X-Men. Because the X-Men have always been an incredible property. Always, since the all different X-Men. They've always been an incredible property. So if there's anything we'd go back to the movies for, it would be a really good X-Men movie. But this is current day MCU. They don't do that. They don't know how to do that. How do you know that, Dave? Look at Phase 5 and 6. Look at WandaVision to Wonder Man and tell me again if they know what they're doing. Just don't think so, folks. All right, let me put your comments on the screen. So yes, rest in peace, Chuck Norris. Talked about that at the top. And like I said, that's a man that left his mark on the world. So that's why I challenge all of us. I'm working on it. I want you to work on it. I want you to think about what kind of mark are you making in the world? What kind of legacy are you going to leave? I'm going to challenge all my viewers to think about that. Are you creating bodies of work? I mean, even if they're videos, what are you creating that's going to live on once you're gone? So I'm going to challenge you to think about that, about making your mark in life. And Chuck Norris really, really did. He really did. It comes across, we're talking about Dan Slott. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is still Lindelof back here. This is still Lindelof, yeah. It comes across like he's trying to save face, just another one that doesn't like the characters. That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey, y'all, do me a favor. Everybody is watching me live. Put your Instagram handles in the chat. So when I put this stuff on Instagram, I can tag y'all because sometimes your handles are different on Instagram than they are on Twitter. So sometimes I forget who's who. Put your Instagram handles in the chat for me so I know who to tag when I drop these videos on the gram, okay? Yeah, Lindelof is just trying to save face. Just another one that doesn't like the characters. It seems like we fired everybody that loved the characters and they hired everybody that hates them. I'll be glad when this era is over. That Slott video sounds desperate, which it is. Respect your characters, especially Spidey. Stop making him a punching bag, make him a hero, and one that you can look up to. It's not hard. I've heard this sentiment over and over again. Spider-Man, Superman, make him a hero. Captain America, not a punching bag. Make him somebody that people can look up to because that's what heroes are supposed to do. That's kind of the point of superheroes. To show us something better, to give us something to aspire to, and to give us a break from our lives where we can read about some places where good wins. They've forgotten all that and they hate all that. And so that's why it's dying. Snowflake and Safe Space, yes. What I did not know that and glad I didn't. Yes, them. Okay. So they were part of the reboot of the New Warriors. And as soon as everybody saw them, we were like, what in the world? That's why this book didn't come out, because this book was so lame. But this is the kind of stuff Marvel is trying to do. Why? Why everything got to be gender bent? Why? So anyway, yeah. So yeah, be glad that you missed that whole thing if you didn't know nothing about it. Just look up the New Warriors reboot. You'll see it. The Finn Star Wars thing still irks me. Easily the most interesting character in The Force Awakens, and they dropped the ball, yes. They had a perfect setup with a stormtrooper that broke their training and realized they couldn't work for the Empire anymore. What did that do? Psychologically, what would that do to you? Does the Empire have penalties for that? And then maybe he has latent force abilities. I mean, so much was there. So if we're going to move away from the Skywalkers, but we're still going to be in Star Wars world, they had the perfect setup with Finn. But nope, we all know what happened there. Mary Ray Sue Palpatine happened. They even took Finn out of the posters for China because couldn't have too many black people on the poster for that. So, I mean, these companies keep shooting themselves in the foot. So, I mean, at this point, you've heard me say before, it's comical to me now. It really is, I'm sad to say. Like with Superman and other well-established long-lived characters, is always rough when they want to make it theirs, not honor the content better, then go off and do your own thing. That's right. That's right. Honor the character and give us solid versions of that. And then, maybe throw some twists in there or just make your own, but they won't ever do that. They won't ever do that. They're going to take what's established and what's working and twist it. Okay. Hope you're wrong just because I want to see you happy for once. I'm not unhappy. I want them to stop letting you down. I'm not unhappy. I'm not an unhappy person at all. It's just they have just messed up my comic properties. I'm not the only one saying that. Remember, that's how Gary Nerdrotic built his whole channel in Critical Drinker. They built their whole YouTube following off of criticizing the fall of sci-fi and fantasy media. But I'm not unhappy, I promise you. I wish they made something good, so I had something good to say. So if that's what you mean, yeah, that would be nice. But they keep making crap. I'm going to call it what it is. You ain't going to never get me to say it's chicken salad when I know it's chicken crap. Huh? Them is the ABCs of me, baby. With everything you can shut, put it in the up position. That's right. Talking about Batman afraid of bats. Just stop talking. Read a comic book. When it comes, Jason, when it comes to comic book movies, it seems like the comic creators and the movie makers don't coordinate on characters to cross-promote those products. Exactly what I said. That's exactly right. I don't understand it. Literally leaving millions on the table when you have a character that's been popularized in the movies. You know who else did that? Disney did that with Grogu, Baby Yoda. When Baby Yoda first came out, he was a surprise hit. He was the surprise breakout character of The Mandalorian. Nobody saw that coming. And when he hit big. And you know what they did? They didn't even have no toys ready. Right, Star Wars, the company where Lucas made his money off of toys and merchandising tie-ins to movies. And they didn't, because it seemed like once they saw the popularity of Baby Yoda, then you flood the market with the toys. That's when people are most likely to buy, but they didn't do that. Now nobody cares, which is a shame. Which is a shame. But I agree completely with that comment, Jason. There's no coordination, which is, I don't know. Okay, Liefeld he quote tweeted me the other day. He disagreed with me on what I said about The Dark Knight Returns, about how I said my comment was about nobody want to see broken down heroes. And I was specifically talking about old man Jordan, but I mean in general. And then he said, no, we love The Dark Knight Returns. So Liefeld quote tweeted me about that. It said, nope, hard to disagree because we love The Dark Knight Returns, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I love that book too. Batman was older, but he wasn't broke down. Every time he got broke down, we found out his healing secret was the bat in the cave, brought him back to full strength. And as the series went on, Batman actually began to de-age and got younger. So it was supposed to be the last Batman story, but he was still Batman. Yes, he was in pain. Yes, it was harder for him to fight. Everything was harder because he's 55, pushing up on 60. Yes, it was harder, but he showed even in that, he was still Batman. So it wasn't him totally broken down. Okay, so it wasn't the same thing. Anyway, Liefeld was commenting the other day that Hollywood still treats comic creators like outcasts. I think they love the money, though, but it's all sequential art, though, and makes me mad. Yeah, there's never been a love between Hollywood and comic creators because they don't respect the source material. You've heard me say it before, but the Salkinds, who had the rights to Superman way back in the Chris Reeve days, the movie they wanted was Superman 3. Big, dumb, goofy, Smallville based, lots of sight gags. Richard Pryor. Richard Donner had to fight to make Superman the movie, and he fought him so hard they fired him because he went over budget. And they brought in Lester to finish Superman 2. Donner had to fight. That was Donner's vision. That was not the Salkinds. And they still hate, not the Salkinds, but, well, yeah, them and Shimon, but they still hate Superman. So there's always been that tension there. Batman 66 was a surprise hit. It became a classic and then a cult classic because it was the hottest thing on TV when it was on back then. And everybody, because Hollywood wanted in. If you go watch Batman 66, all the hot Hollywood stars of the day wanted in on that show. So when the show's a hit, everybody wants in. All of a sudden, superheroes aren't funny and silly no more when the show's a hit. So Monte and Fame, they're like that. Not the source material. It's always been that way. That's a shame, but this Punisher is seen in the trailer, which was neat. I wonder who else would be in the movie, but not the trailer. I guess I just want a Marvel team-up movie. I think this is one. We got Punisher, we got Hulk, we got Jean Grey. You know who I think is going to make a surprise appearance? I think Ben Grimm is going to be the cameo. I really do. I could be wrong, but it just feels like that's coming to me. Just feels like somewhere in this movie, Ben going to pop up, which would be apropos because Spider-Man teamed up with the Fantastic Four before he did anybody else. No Aunt May is unfortunate. She's a big part of Spidey's world, and Marissa Tomei was good in the role. She is Spidey's world in the comics, and she was the catalyst for a brand new day. And everything Peter did, he did because he was worrying about his poor old Aunt May. Didn't want to give her a heart attack running around in his blue and red underoos. That's all gone now. Wonder if Daredevil will make a surprise appearance, especially with the hand in the film. Probably that too. Can't really see how we get the Punisher in the hand and not Dee. But I'm hoping that Ben Grimm shows up. But yeah, I think Daredevil will make another cameo because they're going to want to push second season of this show anyway. So why not? Just as an aside, the Darkwing Duck Show, episode 28, Duckyphobia, did a parody of this with Darkwing getting 4 extra arms. He can't get the arms to fight crime or do the dishes. Solid episode. Right. Because again, am I the spider or am I the man is not new. But still interesting. I mean, I like the story arc with all the characters based on totems. I like it. I like it where they have to go inside themselves and decide which part of me is the most dominant. I would like stories like that. Very much so. I was a little late and missed the safe space discussion, but 1960s Element Lad was the only male hero who could pull off a pink and white costume. Sorry, but it's true. Wow. Yeah, I was actually just looking at Element Lad the other day. Element Lad and Cosmic Boy had a pink costume too. Do you remember that? Not pink and white though. But let me see if I can find a picture of Cosmic Boy in yeah, because he had a pink and white costume too. It just didn't have a lot of white, but yeah, wait, let me pull it up. Well, actually, let you just look at the search page so you can see all the stuff at once. Look at that. Look at that. So Cosmic Boy. That pink and white boy. So I guess he pulled it off. Maybe. So, but yeah, not too many male characters wear pink. Just don't. All right. Okay. And I think that's it. All right, guys. That's it for today. I always have a lot to do. I've been pulling some all-nighters because I'm working on this other project. So I'm going to sign off. But good to talk to everybody. And I hope Spider-Man Brand New Day is a good film. I do. I don't have that much hope for the Lantern Show. And I don't have that much hope for the Dan Slott Spider-Man comics, but I do believe that Spider-Man Brand New Day has the potential to be a good film. I hope they don't squander it. All right, that's it. I will see you next week, same time. Even when I make a time change, I'll let you know. I'm still working on that, but I've got other projects I'm working on. So, but anyway, I will let you know. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching me live. Thanks for all of you watching on replay. Don't forget to like and share this video because that helps with the algorithm. And I will see you same time next week. DG2 Comics Chat out.